On that note, we will open the Eugene Water and Electric Board's January 2026 board meeting. My name is John Borowski. I'm the chair. And we will start off this meetings with item number 1, which is our agenda check. Does anybody have any additions, subtractions, or modifications to the agenda at this point? Okay, then we will move on to item 2, which is items from board members and general manager. And we'll just go around the room. We'll start with John.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everybody. Just one thing, I'd like to thank Ann and staff for helping me. I had a person had an issue trying to call Becca, and they couldn't get through. They thought we were closed and all that. So I called, and I went on hold for over 25 minutes with, the elevator music, and that was it. And that's unfortunate because I know that we have an explanation in here, Julie, about that. But to me, it's still unacceptable to have to wait on hold and not get anybody for over a half hour. And that just absolutely inflames me. Try only 5 minutes, that's long enough, but a half hour. And she had an explanation that's a one-off and maybe it didn't happen, but if we knew that was coming, is there any way we could have staffed up even better for that, or we gave a better explanation? You said it's like every recording you get anymore, it always says we're experiencing unseasonably or call volume. Well, that's standard now. It's like pressing 1 for English. It's a standard in any recording. And so I was just wondering if maybe we can, hopefully in the future, when we know we're going to have an influx of calls, do that, because that's a really good way to get people mad. At least I was a little upset. So just thought, I'm not trying to throw darts at anybody. I understand the situation, but I just did think that hopefully we could do better.
Right. Sonia.
Happy New Year. That's all.
Indy.
Yes. I had the misfortune of having our furnace die in the last month or so. And one of the major HVAC companies came out to see if it could be revived, and it couldn't, and told us what our options were and steered us towards replacing our gas furnace. And I just wasn't totally sure because I've had this experience with this company before. And so I called EWEB and had 2 people come out, as they do, to look at our system to give us some information. And those people were Haley Dawson and Robert Salas. They were fantastic. They did such a nice job of looking at our system and talking to us about our options. And it was really, really super helpful. And we got so much information. And they also did a fantastic job while they were up in our attic looking at stuff, just looking at other things that we can do, looking at our insulation. They went into our basements where we have another heat system and gave us some recommendations about what we could do to kind of for energy efficiency. And they were just super professional. They were fantastic. And it was great to just be a regular customer and experience that. Unfortunately, we need a new furnace, which is costly. But anyway, I just had a really positive experience and wanted to give Haley and Robert a huge shout out.
Great.
That's it.
Yep.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. All right. For myself, I enjoyed a Happy New Year as well. I just wanted to thank staff and the board for the opportunity to be president over the last year and be in leadership for the last 3 years, I believe, because of the flipping when we had a different commissioners in the leadership role. Thanks to Mindy for being the vice president and helping with all those really tough agenda settings meetings. But yeah, thanks to staff for helping get through all of that. And I appreciate the ability to be president. So thank you. Frank.
President Borowski, I can say that one more time. Commissioners, good evening. Just wanted to point out one thing that was in the report, the GM report to you, and that was we're doing a soft launch for interval data now that people can look at their bills in more detail, either hourly or monthly. This is just part of our continuous improvement work on the new system and the new metering, and so I wanted to point that out, and that'll be an important tool as we look toward demand response and different customer programs going forward. So there's some instructions on how to effectively use it if you want to go try it out. I have tried it out. It's interesting, and we're slowly putting in more and more historical data over the next couple of months.
Great. Will that be just electricity, or will the water be also be able to be monitored?
I believe at this point it's just electric. Electric is a bit more dynamic. The meters record every 15 minutes. It's not quite the same on water because they don't have a power source, so it's a little bit different.
Okay, great. All right, next up is correspondence. Anybody have anything? Oh, we did have something on that. There we go.
So President Borowski,
Yeah.
I did a couple comments on this, but also, upon further review, this is the beauty of dynamic board meetings. I was told that water is also interval data. It may not be quite the same interval, but it's also interval data. So the referee at the game was overruled by those reviewing in New York or whatever they usually do. So I appreciate that. The correspondence this evening is really informational for review. A number of these, if you have additional questions or feedback, can either we can talk about those in our individual check-ins, or if you had any questions that staff could answer, we'd be happy to answer those.
Anybody have any questions or comments on the items that were presented in correspondence? I did see one thing in the annual board policy reviews under the approved media people that was listed in that. We don't have Lookout listed, and it might be worthy to put Lookout in there. I think they're a new player in our market, and I think I don't think they would have been turned away, but there was a list of a bunch of media that was in there, and I think we could vet them and add them to that in the next time we do a revision.
And any complications to doing that as far as individual representatives, or is it by organization and we can just add the organization?
Policy typically just lists by organization, and we do have some other news media who may not be listed but have been approved because they've sent us a letter. So happy to include them when it comes back on the consent calendar.
Yeah, I would just say the next time around, just throw them in. I mean, it's most of the radio stations and well-known publications, and it's been around long enough that I believe it's a valuable tool to our community.
Yep, we'll make that note. Thank you.
All right. Okay, anybody else on correspondence? I didn't see any hands raised. We are a little bit early for public input, but nobody on the phone. There's one person on the phone, but they are in the queue, so I am going to open up the public comment, and I will read the preamble. Welcome to the public input session for this meeting. EWEB is a public non-for-profit organization whose charter is to deliver drinking water and electricity to our community. Although this forum is not used for an open back and forth dialogue, commissioners and staff value hearing diverse perspectives and receiving community input. Speakers are asked to keep their testimonies relevant to EWEB business and request that everybody share their comments in a productive and respectful manner. Speakers should speakers or audience members become disruptive, they may be muted and or removed from the meeting. At this time, we have one caller and one person in person. If there's other people that would like to speak, there is still forms to be signed up. We've got two here and one on the phone. So now the public session is good. I already did that once, but we can do it twice. And our first speaker is Andrew Simmerin. Andrew, you can unmute yourself and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. My name is Andrew Simmerin. Thank you for providing this opportunity to speak. I live in Ward 7 in the River Road Water District. I wanted to comment today on the recruitment of the general manager position. I see that there's going to be some deliberations between now and the next public board meeting, according to the timeline. And I'd like for you to keep in mind that it's important that we have a general manager that understands the importance of climate resiliency and affordability for the community. We're soon going to be getting another water source for our network from the Willamette, and that's a whole nother watershed that needs to be taken care of, since it's going to be another one of our water sources. In the faces of wildfire, drought, things like that, we need a climate resilient future that EWEB should be prepared to handle. We know that the Climate Recovery Ordinance and Climate Action Plan 2.0, the metrics we're getting back from that aren't doing so hot. So it would be great to have a manager that can work on the greenhouse gas emission goals, considering that this is the city's or one of the area's principal utility providers. So although I get my water through River Water District, they purchase it, of course, through EWEB. So there's many downstream dependencies there. So again, I would just please encourage you to keep focus on low carbon, affordable energy, clean water, and resilient systems in the face of climate catastrophe. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Vicki Curry, followed by Mark Robino. You can come up to the table. You will also have 3 minutes to speak. You can sit or stand, whatever.
Can I be heard? Fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm here to advocate for one of my clients. I'm a psychologist in Eugene. I've been treating Hogan Mulgrave for almost 5 years since there was a threat to his life while on duty as a meter reader in Coburg. So I'm advocating for his request to not have a smart meter installed at his home. I sent a letter to the board members. People, did you receive the letter? Okay. I'd like the letter to go on the record, so I don't want to discuss the veracity or the accuracy of the statements that are made, but I'd like you to know that these are the perceptions of Mr. Mulgrave, and I've seen significant data to support them, so I'll just read them, and it is what it is. It's what I'm really nervous. Anyway, I testify in court, but I know that scene. This is novel to me. Okay. Hogan Mulgrave has shared with me his deep concerns and legitimate fears about EWEB's demands to install a smart meter at his home. He has given me permission to advocate for his well-being regarding this situation. Mr. Mulgrave experienced profound and indisputable racial discrimination while in the employ of EWEB, including a refusal by EWEB to install a smart meter that may have kept him out of harm's way at a particular house in Coburg, where he ultimately had his very life threatened. Mr. Mulgrave also alleges with substantial documentation that he experienced chronic racial discrimination from management members of staff at EWEB over his decade-long tenure at the organization. He holds EWEB largely responsible for and complicit in his current experiences of PTSD, which he continues to receive treatment for on a weekly basis. Based on his prior experiences with your agency, his ongoing symptoms of PTSD that disrupt his life on a regular basis, and his extreme distrust of EWEB, their employees and their policies, he has requested that no smart meter be installed at his home. He has knowledge about the inner workings of the devices, and it seems reasonable that he would be concerned about unethical but absolutely possible inappropriate monitoring of his home. This would be an undue and devastating situation for him to have to endure. And he suggests that he may even have to move somewhere outside of EWEB area to minimize ongoing stress and triggers to what would amount to EWEB's potential for detailed surveillance of his personal life if the agency went forward with their demand to install the device. Please do the right thing by allowing his request for that no smart meter be installed in his home now or in the future to be honored. I noted that a number of the board members have some expertise or knowledge about psychology and or mental health, and hope that these perspectives are considered and given weight in making this determination. I am aware of vast numbers of homes and businesses who currently have the ability, this is in the letter, to opt out, or they're in untenable locations to utilize smart meters for lots of reasons. So even though it would be to the advantage of UWEB to install them, I do know that it's possible for them to waive that requirement. And I believe it's reasonable to expect this courtesy to be provided to Mr. Mulgrave.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions about any of them?
We don't
Okay.
usually do a back and forth, so.
But I'd ask.
You bet. Thank you. Thank you,
Okay,
Chris.
thank you.
Mark.
Good evening. Two things, try to get them quick. One is I saw on your schedule, you're going to have a discussion on the quote Watershed Bill of Rights initiative. Word about the Clean Water Act signed by Richard Nixon. It didn't accomplish as much as was intended. With the West Eugene Parkway down the street from here, when that was proposed, the Clean Water Act did not prevent construction. It merely required disclosure of the planned damage. What actually stopped it was a very different law called 4F, which prohibits building federal aid highways, parklands, not wetlands. Unfortunately, the initiative doesn't specify who would enforce anything, doesn't have any legal processes specified in it, so it's unlikely to impact EWEB operations. But we need to do a lot more for pollution prevention, since we are in the 6th great mass extinction of life, as we all know, but prefer not to think about too much. Something that will impact EWEB operations and the Western power grid and society in whole is data centers and peak electricity and the decline of natural gas, which has become the backbone for the Western Electric Coordinating Council, which we also don't want to talk about. And I have some charts on this I'd like to leave. I don't know how many to leave for the commissioners.
Leave whatever, and we'll make sure that they get distributed to the board members.
There's even proposals for new nuclear reactors at the Hanford Reservation, the most polluted place on this side of the planet, and along the Columbia River. And if those are successful, then probably everywhere. There's even proposals I read about a couple days ago for thermonuclear fusion reactors for the Northwest, even though nobody has ever generated a milliwatt from fusion power. Fusion would create new nuclear waste through high energy neutron bombardment of everything else, including the structural supports. And if you think global warming is not happening fast enough, then 100 million degree centigrade plasma all over the place, we could really accelerate climate change and the melting of ice caps and snowpacks. I realize we live in insane times, but the idea that we're going to boost fusion reactors all over the Northwest to power giant data centers to make AI fake videos is just the only response is psychiatric. So be nice in the new year to think about limits to growth on a finite planet, because Earth is not getting any bigger.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who has signed up? Okay, with that, I will close the public comment and ask commissioners if there's any questions or comments that you would like to speak to. Seeing none, we will thank you, everybody, for coming out. And Mark, leave your stuff and we'll make sure that it gets distributed to the board and the general manager. All right, next item is the approval of consent calendar A. Minutes and routine contracts.
I'll move to adopt consent calendar A.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? With none, I will call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Vote is unanimous. Next is approval of consent calendar B.
Move to adopt consent calendar B.
Second.
Again, any discussion on consent calendar B? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? The vote is unanimous. Next item is 2026 election of officers. At this point, we will accept nominations for the president and vice president, and then we'll have discussion and vote on that. Indy.
So it's usually standard for the person who's in the vice president role then to roll over into the president role for the next year, but I'm going to take myself out of that. So I would like to nominate John Brown as president and Sonia Carlson as vice president.
Is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? All right. John or Sonia, would you like to speak to it or?
I'd just say thank you. I'll be more than glad to step up and do it. And I'll probably have a little dialogue amongst all of us about what your preferences are for how meetings are run. And as long as I don't start hammering the gavel when we're 1 minute over time on an agenda item, I promise not to do that anymore. But no, I thank you. And if that's the will of the group, I'd be more than glad to take the gavel.
Well, I appreciate the nomination and will do my best to sub in for John Brown when and if he's not here. So.
Okay,
For sure.
with that being said, I will call for a vote. The slate is John Brown for president and Sonia Carlson for vice president. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, carries unanimously. I pass the gavel. Thank you very much.
I was going to say something about a peaceful transition of power, but I don't think I'll make that comment.
January 6th, please don't.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, that's right.
And please make a note on my time card about the pay adjustment for the new position, please. Thank you. So the next agenda item is item number 10. No, excuse me, item number 9. The appointment of board liaison and assignments and committees. And Frank, you want to lead us through that? Okay. You want me to do that? Okay. Sorry, I've been prepped on this. So anyhow, well, that's who does what with particular committees and everything now. And so Sonia, we'll go with you and Tim first, LCOG. And now Sonia, you've been there for a long time and that's a pretty good time commitment for you, I think. But I know that you've moved up in the hierarchy of you're the president and things such as that. And you know, why don't you express your will about that, and same with Tim.
Yeah, they typically meet every other month. And then there are opportunities to be on other committees within that. There's budget committee, there's an audit committee, and then there's the executive committee. I served on all of those during my time with LCOG, but like John Brown mentioned, I was on the executive committee. I was vice president for 2 years and then the president for 2 years. So I've been on the committee for 6 years, and I thought it might be good to provide others with the opportunity to be on if they would like to be. I have a lot of other personal commitments right now, and it'd be great to take that one piece off at least for a year or two. So if there's others that are interested in it, would love some interest there.
Tim, your thoughts?
I'm happy to step up unless any of the other commissioners are deeply and passionately interested. That's fine with me. I'm happy to do it.
I will also say, so LCOG, the Lane Council of Governments, is a wonderful opportunity to meet governments around Lane County. And even though I've been on the board for 6 years, it still impresses me how many new things I learn about what they do for our community. And they're just, it's a very unsung hero of support services for some of the most vulnerable. So it is very important.
So without hearing anybody else, I would probably propose that we have Tim Morris be the primary, and Sona, would you agree to be the alternate in case of Tim's absence? Okay, check that one off. Thank you. Mackenzie Watershed Council, John Borofsky.
Yeah, if nobody else has any interest, I would like to stay on that one. I've gotten to know the people up there, and it's been very informative, and I would stay on it unless somebody else wants to do it. And that's the council, not the alliance. The alliance has a staff member doing it. So the alliance is kind of like the board for the council. And so we have a EWEB staff member that does that. The Mackenzie Watershed Council is the one that I would be designated to.
And Frank?
Yeah, just one comment. I think it is good to have alternates in the case of some secession around this board. And so I would encourage the board to consider an alternate for Commissioner Borofsky to just participate.
Yeah,
in that
and
process.
then the only thing that I would say to that is that meeting is always staffed by 2 other EWEB staff members. So there have been times when I haven't been able to attend, but I give my voting proxy to one of the EWEB staff members. But yeah, I'd love to have an alternate. That's fine. And the more the merrier. It's a fun group, but there is just the one vote.
I did that for years. What's the frequency of the meetings now?
It's monthly, probably. They don't meet, I think, 2 months out of the year. And I would say the majority of them are either in Springfield at IP or upriver. So there's probably a third of them that are upriver, a third that are online, and a third that are at IP. So, yeah.
I am curious. So we would continue to hold this position regardless of if we sold the upriver territory.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have water. I just wanted
Yeah,
to.
water and perk and dams and all kinds of things.
I'll volunteer to be the alternate unless anybody else has a burning passion, because I spent about 6 or 8 years there previously. So,
Yeah.
and I've never known you to quit a committee, so I'm pretty safe. So if you're okay with that, Borofsky primary, and I'll be secondary.
Yep.
All right. And then the OPEB, that's me. That's it's a non-voting position. We meet quarterly. It's pretty easy. All I do is sit there and not say anything and listen to how wonderfully that fund has been. And it's post-employment benefits to insurance for retirees, and it's in good health. I've been there for probably 6 years maybe, and I'm more than willing to continue unless somebody else wants to do it. You meet, like I say, you only meet quarterly for an hour and a half, and you listen to all about the economics and how good the fund is doing and things like that. And then you report back and say things are good. Yes.
It's actually a little lighter load than you described. It's twice a year.
Well, thank you.
It's even more attractive.
I've been going to a meeting. I don't know who I've been meeting with. Right. No, it's twice a year. Then that's even easier. So I'd be more than willing to check that box unless somebody else wants to do it.
We did just change that last year.
Thank you. They should throw me under the bus in a heartbeat. Okay, I'll take OPEB. Sub, Mindy.
Yeah, I haven't really done much with sub, but I'm happy to stay on as that designee unless there's somebody that wants it. And it looks like we don't have an alternate, so if somebody wants to be the alternate.
No, I think it's going to be important because they're getting a new general manager this year too. So it'll be good to at least have a face there. So thank you for agreeing to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, Mindy for sub. Lane Electric, that's me. I'll stay there. I'm a customer of Lane Electric besides EWEB, but also they have a wonderful barbecue at their annual meeting. That's fun to go to. So if anybody else would like it, I'm more than glad to step aside, be an alternate, or somebody else be primary. It doesn't matter.
We'll just have 5 alternates for the barbecue.
Okay, well, I'll take Lane Electric. City of Eugene Liaison.
That's you too.
Yeah, okay, that's us too. So that's John Brown and Sonia Carlson. And then City of Springfield, it's myself and Tim. And, we really haven't done anything other than I've met with the mayor on a few issues and other than that, but it's really kind of a passive relationship. So I'm willing to stay there too.
Here, unless anyone is excited for it.
I think we're good. What have we missed?
I don't think you missed anything, President Brown. I do think that with a number of transitions, the continuity of this work can become important from a relationship standpoint, not just at, say, I know it was mentioned that Springfield is getting a new general manager, City of Eugene is getting a new city manager, EWEB is getting a new general manager, hopefully at some point. And so having continuity at the governance level is important. And so really appreciate how everybody's approaching these, and you'll get tapped for various different reasons on various different issues. So thank you. I think this does it.
Okay, thank you. Moving on. Next.
Hold on, one question.
Yes, sir.
There used to be another one that it was the MWMC, is that what?
Metro wastewater?
Or no, not
No.
the regional.
There.
Which one?
One, Mackenzie Watershed.
No. There was one, a regional thing that,
Oh, that's the,
The Northwest
The-
Public Power
Yeah.
Association.
Yeah.
So I can give a little bit of update on that one. I have served on that board for the last few years. The way that the governance is selected is that at the end of the year, basically, they took me off at my request. They alternate around between general manager, executives of utilities, and then governance of utilities, so commissioners. It's not the state of Oregon's commissioner opening at this point. So I would suspect it might open up in 2027-ish for if a board member was interested in the NWPPA board. But that is not available at this time.
okay.
may I just say that I did that for many years, and yeah, they meet 4 times a year, but they meet like in Anchorage, Sacramento, Reno, they meet all over the place, and the meetings are 3 to 4 days apart. So it takes about a week out of your life, 4 times a year.
Right.
And that's a huge time commitment. And so I would just warn you about that.
It also, Commissioner Borowski, there are still NWPPA, Northwest Public Power Association, opportunities for education, including board education. And so it's not just limited to being a board member. One of the benefits that we really see in that organization is the multiple layers of educational opportunities that exist, not just for staff, but for commissioners as well. So that opportunity still exists.
Great. So I guess the one thing I would say is I hope when you stepped off, you kind of left a placeholder maybe for the incoming general manager, or let them know that EWEB is still wants to be a part of that organization. And then also, if you see those educational opportunities, make sure to forward them to us to see if we would like to avail ourselves of them.
Yeah, I'll make sure that happens, and definitely been communicated that EWEB is still an active participant in that organization, and that the next time it rolls around to an opening being in the state of Oregon for governance, then we'll reach out to the board. I'll make some notes that would be something to pay attention to.
Great. Because I know the commissioner who held this seat before me was an active member of that commission.
It was Commissioner Helgeson.
Yeah, and he got a lot out of it, he said. So I just didn't want that to kind of fall into the ether.
Yeah, I'll just make a note, Holly, and when you're looking at these positions for next year, to put a placeholder for Northwest Public Power Association, and then someone can reach out ahead of this meeting and see where they are at with their governance structure.
Great,
Thank you.
Like I said, I just didn't want that to fall into the ether.
Yeah, that's a good
No, and
point.
I'll just give a shout out to NWPPA is probably some of the best educational classes I've ever taken. The meetings, I mean, it's worthwhile, but like I say, you're taking a month out of your life, besides the time commitment for this. And so it's just word of caution, especially those that, aren't self-employed or have a different schedule. So, but yeah, I think hopefully some of us will take some of their classes because they're really, really good.
And we'll pay you overtime to do that.
Time and a half. Thank you. Next agenda item, yes,
Don't we have to officially vote on those or do we not have to?
it's,
I don't know if we have to make a motion.
I'll prepare a resolution for your consent calendar.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
yeah. So we good? Okay, thank you. All right, next agenda item is number 10, general manager transition, recruitment process and standards. Deidre.
All right, good evening, President Brown, Commissioners, and General Manager Lawson. For the record, my name is Deidre Williams. I serve as the Chief People Officer here at EWEB. Today, I'm here to give a quick update on the executive recruitment process, and I'm ultimately seeking direction from the board regarding the process for final candidate selection. So, it's a brief update for everyone on the recruitment project. We are moving as planned through the process. Board will note that our next activity is shortlist interviews scheduled for next week. After that, those interviews, the boards will need to confer and determine if sufficient information has been gathered to determine who the finalist candidate will be, or if a second round of interviews should be scheduled with a reprioritized candidate pool. Our project timeline has been updated to reflect that finalist interviews will be as needed, depending on the board's direction. Any selection of final successful candidate will take place in a public session. We look to make a final candidate selection in February 3rd with an offer of employment somewhere in the February 17th timeframe, assuming we stick to our schedule. Oregon statute requires the process for hiring of a general manager to be discussed and determined in public session. We have mostly accomplished this back in the September board meeting, but the one piece I neglected to walk the board through was the actual process that the board will use to make that final selection. So that's what we're going to do today so that we have that conversation in the public session. The requirements for the process, as stated in Oregon statute or EWEB bylaws, are as shown on the screen. Essentially, that the deliberations and final selection need to take place in a public session. The vote has to be completed in a clear and transparent method. Each commissioner's vote has to be publicly recorded in the minutes. Majority decision is required, so that would be 3 out of the 5 voting yes. That's part of our bylaws. And the board, not at the same time as selection necessarily, but will eventually need to approve the successful candidate's compensation package in a public session. That can be in a separate meeting. So I pulled together a recommended process for how the board can walk through and identify the specific candidate for the general manager role. The way that would work would one of the commissioners would make a motion to hire a specific candidate subject to contract negotiation. I provided a sample motion in the gray text up there. So I moved to select, the identified candidate as a new general manager, subject to successful contract negotiation and background check. You would then, as a committee, go through the typical seconding and discussion format. The board president will call for a vote. Each commissioner will publicly state their vote as yes, no, or abstain. These votes will be publicly recorded. And as I said earlier, for the vote to succeed, a majority of commissioners, 3 out of 5, will need to vote yes. So staff is requesting direction from the board regarding the process to identify a candidate to be hired as the new general manager of EWEB. Is this process, as identified on the slide, the process the board wishes to adopt? If not, are there specific changes that the board wishes to see within the process?
Thank you. I'll open it up. Sonia.
I just have a question. If we, adopt this process tonight, And then we go through the candidates and we have candidates that we feel are very close and we wanted to do something different. Do we have the opportunity at that point to change the process, or do we have to come back and vote in public session to change the process? For example, if we wanted to have a skill-based, kind of test or rubric or something that we have the candidates do to help get us a better sense if two candidates are very close. Could we do something like that, or do we have to come back in a public session to change it? I'm just curious about what this vote means.
I believe that that would be acceptable, as is similar to identifying interview questions, which the board is allowed to do in executive session.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Tim?
Yeah, thank you. So with the recommended process, a motion and a second will be made on a specific candidate. When it comes to discussion, will that discussion be exclusively about that candidate, or will there be opportunities to discuss the merits of that candidate compared to others? How are you envisioning that discussion?
The board can manage the discussion how the board wishes to manage the discussion. So whatever process you need to go through in order to come to a decision, you will have time within the executive session process to have some discussion of perspectives as well.
I'd like to interject myself into the queue if I may. Two questions. Number one, just to respond to Tim's, I've done this a few times and I'd be cautious if we're just discussing one candidate and then to compare that to another candidate. The one that we're discussing is probably the lead candidate. And I wouldn't want to say anything that, well, they got more experience or, I'd be careful on that particular type of conversation. My question is Mindy nominates candidate A and Tim seconds that. Sonia nominates candidate B and John seconds that. Now what? We've got two candidates that are moved. Do we hold a discussion of the merits of each candidate? And then I'm just thinking about process.
I appreciate that.
Because I have to kind of facilitate that in case that happens.
Yeah, I think I heard Commissioner Borofsky suggest Robert's Rules of Order would be the way to manage the motions and discussion. My understanding is
so we would have two candidates on the floor.
So
this for my little parliament, I'll play parliamentarian here.
Right.
If Mindy put somebody and there was a second, that would be the person that would be up for discussion. If Sonia wanted to do a substitute motion, and I would like to substitute candidate 2 for this, and there was a second to that, then there would be discussion on candidate 2. There would be a vote up and down on candidate 2, and then it would go back to, it would be the vote would be whether to substitute that person as for first candidate, and then if that passed, that would be the discussion and vote first. If that person didn't get 3 votes, then it would revert back to the original motion. That's kind of my reading of the way.
All right, thank you. And so this evening, this is not an action item, it's a direction item.
this is a direction.
Mindy, you have a comment?
I just have a question. So when I know that we'll be discussing this in executive session on February 3rd, but this is for the public part of it. But I don't see it on the agenda for the regular board meeting. How much time do we have for this?
Actually, General Manager Lawson and I were discussing this beforehand. Right now, we have about 30 minutes, I believe, carved out for the discussion. We'll look to see if we think that's sufficient, and we may have a better idea of that after interviews.
Thank you.
John?
My question would be, and this is just, what if no candidate gets 3 votes?
I would need to look at the bylaws. The bylaws do say a majority.
Well, I think what that would, in my mind, what that would mean would be opening up the candidate pool again. That would be kind of the takeaway that I would get if there's no clear consensus of 3 commissioners to move any one of the candidates forward. It seems to me that we may have to reopen the pool, but I just wanted to have that question, or at least have that discussion out there. If nobody gets 3 votes, we don't have a new general manager.
Yeah, Commissioner Borowski. Oh, I'm
No, go ahead.
Commissioner Rob, there's a couple of different options. I think it depends on the reason why there's a lack of a majority vote. It could be insufficient information. It could be some of the things that Commissioner Carlson were talking about. We don't have a full or proper understanding or a comparison that we can make a decision from. So it could be something that would warrant another step, or it could be none of the candidates we feel are acceptable to the goals and the obligations and the opportunities that we see here. And so it could be let's open this up again, or it could be we want to go down a different path to gather some more information. And that would be circumstantial. The other thing just to note, if I know, and this I don't expect to happen, but just to keep this in mind, since you're talking about Robert's Rules of Orders and sort of this nesting, having a substitute candidate or an alternate candidate be part of that conversation does get both names in the discussion relative to each other. So that's one thing about it. But if a single commissioner abstains, and it's 2 votes to 2 votes, 2 votes in that case is not a majority. A majority has to be 50.1% or greater. So in the case of a 2-2, that is not a passing.
I say 3.
Well, 3 in the case of 5.
But
It's a majority.
A majority is greater than a tie, I guess is what I'm saying in that case.
So under this process, we have to select a candidate and then we have to go and negotiate. So if we select them and then they reject our pay or the compensation package, then we're also back to square one. Is there the opportunity to negotiate, or at least, well, I guess we can't. This is so irritating. I hate this whole process. Because it would be good to know that they actually, would accept a pay amount before making an offer, because this process can out somebody who then may not want to be, out in the public with their desire for this. So if there's any opportunity to, I don't know, do normal processing and hiring. I know that this is not normal, but it seems like it opens us up for a challenge if they reject the hiring package that we vote on at some later time, because there's that negotiation process gap. If there was an opportunity to say ahead of time, this is the package we would like to offer the candidate pool, and offer it to the candidate pool and say, if we offer this, would you accept it? I would rather do that and have that be in a more public setting first, so that the pool is aware of what that looks like. I don't know that.
If I may respond to that, I think that didn't all the candidates indicate the salary range expectation, and they would accept something within a particular range. I think if we go back to the information that they all provided, that we know what that range is now, and we have to work within it. I go back to my memory of what their salary, their compensation expectations were.
One of the gating factors was that they would accept a package within the range that the board proposed in the October board meeting. But Commissioner Carlson is a very interesting idea to put together a potential package and presuppose it. I can talk with council about to see how that might fit within a process.
John?
And to me, that's a little bit putting the cart before the horse. You're putting all your cards on the table, and you don't have some people may have further to move. Some people may have other things that they want to do. And if we go in and say, this is what we can give you, and you get this much housing allowance, you get this, this, and this, we're tied to that. We might be able to go in lower and save our customers some money by having a true good faith negotiated salary package.
Can we have a negotiated salary package? I mean, is there an opportunity for a back and forth with them?
That's the next thing. Her next slide will show that.
That can be done via the, you can authorize the executive recruiter to move forward with that discussion on behalf of the board.
So we select, then they go and they negotiate, and then we come back with something. Okay, all right. In your earlier process, when you had done this process before, weren't you able to do kind of ballots of sorts?
No, we knew what the same process that was proposed here is what's worked in the last two general manager searches, my recollection, and it's worked well. And we give them that range. We say X to Y, and because some people would rather take more retirement or deferred comp and things such as that.
Sorry, I didn't clarify my question appropriately. When you were selecting a particular candidate, I thought that you had mentioned that you had like a secret poll of sort, not secret, but like you could do like a round and be like, okay, did this candidate get enough votes? Did this candidate get enough votes? So that we weren't outing any of the potential candidates who may or may not actually get selected.
In the public process or in the,
I
I'm
thought
not
that-
understanding your question. You
Well,
want
I
to know
thought
when
that
we
you
were polling.
mentioned previously
We narrowed it down to 3, and it was still an executive session. And then we had discussions about the merits of the 3 finalists, and we went through there until we didn't vote.
Okay.
But you can, it's like saying taking head nods or something else. Is anybody going to object, or this is what we're going to do in public session? In public session, we say we move to hire Frank Lawson as next general manager, and then from there we direct HR to negotiate a salary range, and then when we give the HR that range of salary and compensation.
Okay.
I don't like doing it this way either, but we got to work through it.
Just trying to understand the process, and
Yeah, it's not-
it's just such an important process. And thank you.
Frank?
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment. I think that Commissioner Carlson, to some extent, there's a little bit of risk once you say this is the name, when you get into the negotiations of what actually the agreement, general manager agreement looks like. I will say that likely the candidates understand the fact that this is a public organization. And at some point, if they reach that point, their name is out there. And so I think that's pretty well understood in the public utility, public agency like we are. There is a little bit of risk to that there's still some negotiations left. And so, but generally, I do think Commissioner Brown's correct that in deliberations in executive session, you can express your perspectives. And I think there will be some discussion where you understand what your perspectives are and where there's commonality. You can't vote, you can't authorize the negotiations, but there is some form of discussion there.
I'm just back to the time. So we only have an hour for that, the executive session. So I don't know how we're all gonna feel, but like if there are differing opinions, an hour might not be enough.
Are you talking about the February 3rd? There's also, if you recall, 2 hours at the end of from 3 to 5 p.m. on the 13th.
Okay.
So I have one last question. So 26, 27, go back to your time chart, if needed. I mean, if we have that option, if one candidate stands out stronger than all the others and we're ready to make a recommendation after next week,
Yes.
does that timeline change or does it stay the same and we just skip that second set of meetings? If you go back to your
Yeah.
time frame, you'll see it says if needed, as needed on
We
27:30.
we could try to move it forward. My thought was that we would, if the board felt strongly they had the identified candidate, that we could give Lainey a heads up, the executive recruiter, to start thinking about the process, but it's only a few weeks until.
But I'm thinking about encumbering, some people here have to block that time out. There's 3 days. And blocking that time out is easier for some than it is others. I'm just wondering if, and not trying to, pressure the system. I'm just trying to understand it so that there is that option. If we have a candidate that stands out after 12 and 13, we're not going to have to worry about 27 and 30, but we're going to still stick to February 3rd.
Yes, we can ignore 27th through 30th. That was my plan.
Okay.
To be respectful of commissioners' personal schedules.
Thank you. Any other, John?
Yeah, the only thing that I would hope for, and this just goes from our last executive meeting when we were struggling with some of the legal challenges that were presented to us as far as what we could and could not discuss or read or see, or that it would be helpful to me if we could have, because Deidre was kind of trying to convey what the legal staff had told her. It would be helpful for me, maybe at that first morning meeting, if the legal staff could be there for the first hour or so that if we have questions that, hey, they say we can do this, they say we can't do that, we've got somebody there that can explain that to us, because I was confused at our last executive meeting as to what we could or could not do. Deidre did a great job of trying to convey it, but she's not an attorney. She was trying to convey what the attorney said. So it was kind of a game of telephone. It was like, well, why is that? And she's like, well, that's because that's what the attorney told me. And so for me, if that's something that is possible, I don't think they need to be there all day, but if for the initial part, that would help me. I don't know about other commissioners.
Sonia?
But for me, I think it would be more when we have discussion, because I think the first part of the day, I mean, the days are outlined with other things,
Or
so
maybe for the part where that 2 hours at the end, when I don't know, I just, like I said, I was confused during our last executive committee meeting about the legal ramifications.
Okay. Moving on now. So you want direction from us. So
Yes.
you want direction of whether or not the process is acceptable to the board.
Yes.
And I'll go around and I'll look for head nods. Is it okay? Mindy, yes. Tim, yes. Sonia? Yes. John, yes. That's 5.
Okay. Thank you. This is just for informational purposes. There's no decision required on this. Just to recap, eventually, when a final candidate is selected and a compensation package has been agreed to, that will need to be discussed and agreed to in a public session. I provided a sample motion that the board can use if they want to at the time that decision is ready.
Thank you.
All right. No other questions? I will cede my seat to the
President,
next topic.
before you go, there was one item I think you brought up, which was if the board after the 13th interviews on the 13th, there's a clear candidate leader.
Right.
Could the board have a public session immediately after that, or I actually lean into Ann a little bit too, potentially on public notice? I mean, or does the board have to wait till February 3rd?
No.
Or could they have a public session immediately following that? And if so, what would be the requirements of that? I don't know if that's where you were leaning to at one point, or if that's even necessary.
We could expedite the process, because I mean, these things can drag out, and like I say, if we did, we could notice the meeting. It takes 24 or 48 hours public notice to have the meeting, and we could just convene a meeting and say we've recommended to negotiate with candidate A, and I guess that's where we identify the candidate, and then we talk about it and just hold. We'd have a meeting over where we're going to have these meetings next Monday and Tuesday, or we could have it here. It doesn't matter, but just move it on. If that, but we have no idea if that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I'm not,
But
I'm
if
not
if it could, so
presupposing.
that's not impossible, just so I think we can broach the topic and then you'd have to poll the board and see if that's what they want to do. We would know after the 13th whether or not
Yes.
that would, then that would give
Yes.
us plenty of time between there and to move it forward.
I'm not trying to rush you.
Oh, no, you got one foot out the door. I think
No, I'm just.
we're good. No, I thank you for that clarification. Any other comments or questions? If not, we'll move on to the next agenda item. All right. Mr. Borowski.
Thank you, President Brown. This is an issue that has made the ballot, so it's, again, it's a little bit of a complicated thing with being a public body. We, as commissioners, can make a stand for or against or neutral on this particular ballot measure. Staff cannot weigh in or give us advice, is what I guess is what it boils down to. We did receive a memo, which we asked for at last month, as to what the implications of this ballot measure, if it passed, could be on the organization. With that and some other research that I've been doing with partners throughout the community, with partners involved in the watershed. Like I said, I'm on the Watershed Council, so I've spoken with members of that council to get there. They haven't weighed in yet. They probably will at their meeting coming this month or next. But for me, this seems like, as an organization and as a commissioner who's been an ardent supporter of clean water in our community, and EWEB was founded on bringing clean water to Eugene. That's what it was founded by. It was the Eugene Water Board, because there was so much illness happening in the city of Eugene from bad water, that I think it's clear that our mission and our goal is to protect the watershed and make sure that our community has clean and healthy water. I don't believe, this is my personal belief, I don't believe that this ballot measure would advance this utility's mission. I think it would impede a lot of the things that we are trying to do to maintain and protect our watershed and our clean drinking water. So with that said, I have crafted a resolution that I would like to have some input from the rest of the commission on. The direction that I think I would like to go with it is look at it, read it, see if there's things that you agree, disagree. And then if it's a direction that seems correct, we could, from what I understand, we could take this resolution, have it vetted, not by staff, but by the board's council, to bring it back to us for a resolution next month to adopt. So with that, I sent this out earlier today, and I also gave printed copies to everybody here. It goes through some of the poignant sections that I have personally found that might impact this entity, EWEB, not the community as a whole, just our body, and that's where I'm at. So I would love to have other discussion on it, and I will pass it back to the chair.
Okay, I'll open it up for comments. Sonia.
I completely agree. I appreciate you bringing this to us. The only thing is that I loved the intro that you just gave and talking about our history and the ardent support and all of the work that we have done in the watershed. And maybe a little bit more of that could beef up the beginning part. So it's really clear that it's not that we're just committed to it in the future, but we have a long history of operating and caring for the watershed. And we want to be able to continue doing that. And this may actually become a hindrance to us continuing to perform that. So if there was just a little bit stronger language such that you had demonstrated in your lovely speech. Thank you again.
Anybody else question or comment? Tim.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I had an opportunity to talk with members in our community and also certified smart people about this particular measure. And the intent of it is very clear and one that I support of holding polluters accountable and giving that power to the community to be able to do that work. And then also the way that this measure was written is extremely broad and can be challenging, especially for a public utility like EWEB. And so I agree with Commissioner Carlson that being able to add that language in of what EWEB is able and capable to do and how this measure would affect that, I think would be extremely important. And I think it is, I mean, like I said, the intent is something that I strongly understand and agree with, but I think that this could use a little bit more work in the community side. The only thing that I would want to Scrivener's or wordsmith, and I know we all love wordsmithing live and on the floor, it's our favorite thing, is just on the first therefore that says strongly oppose, and it's just the atypical of putting in like language that is strongly opposes or to remove the word strongly. That's really just my recommendation. It's not the most typical from my perspective, but that's all I want to contribute. Thanks.
Any comments? You good? I have a question of Frank. We're allowed to have representation in the legislature before bills are being voted on by public bodies. Why can't Jason help us with this?
I think it's a bit different in that this was a ballot measure, and Jason can weigh in this, but a local ballot measure, which gets to this point by getting signatures, getting it on the ballot, our ability as staff to influence the outcome of that election, because it's not done by legislators, it is done by election. I think that's the distinguishing feature.
Okay, and you got a thumbs up there. So I'm in fully support of opposing this. The way it's written is too broad because this could stop Finrock Reach and it could stop Quartz Creek. Just get some loggers or somebody to say, I don't like it, and they can sue and they tie it up for years. And this thing would be just a litigious forever. And I think it needs, I'm probably the strongest proponent to protect the waterways. I've been going after governmental agencies who are allowing illegal camping on their land for decades. And, so I'm very strong on trying to protect it, but it need this, not with this, not with a shotgun. It has to be precise. So I'm in support of your effort and I'll support it any way I can. So next steps.
Well, for me, I have no problem with taking the strongly out. The board opposes that. Again, that was just a word that came up. And as in the beginning on the whereas, I think I could elaborate a little further on that first paragraph of whereas and bring some of the EWEB history about our longstanding commitment to the watershed and just a little bit more history into that first whereas comment section, revise it, send it back out to the board with those adjustments, and then have that vetted by our legal counsel. Do you think that would be the correct way to go forward?
Right.
Yeah, just for clarification, this is a really good example of where the board has its own appointed consultants in this case, which is legal counsel. Staff will not be weighing in with that legal counsel in this matter. I would suggest that, Commissioner, you're careful about gathering inputs and edits outside of public session. It can be considered a serial meeting. And so if you want to gather input here and then take it to legal counsel, have them put it into resolution format and come back to public session for either vote or amendment using Robert's Rules of Orders, that would be appropriate. But I would avoid gathering the collection of inputs in the process outside of public session. That's my only piece of advice there.
So could I propose a process that Commissioner Borowski meet with whatever council it is, and bring back to us a proposed ordinance for our February meeting? And I know our agenda's got 5 minutes left, but we'll find time. and bring it back, and then we can discuss it. And if we want to wordsmith it there, we can do that in public session. But get this refined down to a resolution. Is everybody in agreement with that process? John, you good?
Yeah, and I'll work on the top half, and then you can put me in contact, whoever needs to go through it. That was kind of what I was hoping would happen here tonight. I think that expounding on our history is a great idea. I didn't want to editorialize too much. That's why I kept it short and sweet, but I think that's an easy, there's a whole book that I can pull a couple quotes out of. The history of EWEB on the Mackenzie is the book. And if you haven't read it, you should read it, Tim. It's fascinating. So I will do that. It'll come back to us next month as a discussion item. And so if you see other things in here that you think you might want to change next month, highlight them and we can do it in public session.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And thanks, John, for bringing that to our attention. That's what participation in these committees and assignments does. He would not have known about that, probably without being on the Watershed Council. So good move. Thank you. Next agenda item number 12, Leaburg decommissioning LDAP plan from Liaison.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Lisa Krentz, Generation Manager. Joining me tonight is Mark Zineker, our Generation Engineering Supervisor, and Jeremy Simoji, Engineering Planner and our Project Manager for Leaburg Decommissioning. We're here to provide updates on the Leaburg Decommissioning program and all the parallel processes that are associated with it. Mark and Jeremy are going to do most of the talking this evening. Here's a brief look at our agenda. Mark will first share information on our progress on near-term risk reduction measures at Leaburg. He'll then provide an update on Walterville, including the status of the project and the upcoming strategic evaluation. And then finally, Jeremy will provide an update and overview on where we're at with Leaburg decommissioning planning. And with that, I'll pass it over to Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. And good evening, Commissioners. When we talk about near-term risk at Leaburg Canal, we're talking about the tributary creeks and the challenges that they pose. Along the 5-mile canal, we have a number of named and unnamed tributaries, some of which, like Johnson and Cogswell, are quite big. In an extreme wet weather event, they are capable of putting more water into the canal than we would ever have during normal operations. And even a fairly normal wet weather event can fill the canal to high levels. So although the canal may normally be running very low these days, when a storm refills it, all of our problematic seepage areas do come back to life, and our dam safety hazards for internal erosion, which could lead to a canal breach, become real again. The summertime drying of the embankment soils, vegetation growth on the interior embankment slopes, burrowing animals, et cetera, are issues that we're carefully monitoring or actively addressing because they can lead to increased seepage and increased risk of internal erosion during a storm. Here on the left is a photo of Cogswell Creek, and that's how it normally looks these days, essentially a dry creek bed. And on the right, you see it transformed into whitewater during a pretty normal wintertime storm. This photo on the left shows normal conditions at Johnson Creek, gentle flow through a meadow. And on the right, you see the overbank condition that happens each winter during a bigger storm event. EWEB and our regulators recognized these risks during the first wet weather season after we went out of service. And we quickly received letters from FERC Dam Safety directing us to find ways to decrease water levels and provide additional low flow outlet capacity. We have just 2 low-level outlets for the canal, shown by the red stars on this map. The largest outlet is near the upstream end of the canal. It's at the Wasteway Gate. Unfortunately, that one's located upstream of where most of the creeks, including the largest creeks, enter the canal. And then we have a small low-level outlet at the downstream end of the canal at the forebay. Though much smaller than the Wasteway Gate, it's very important due to its downstream location. So here you can see the forebay at the downstream end of the canal. The red arrows pointing to the small 36-inch sluice gate was initially the only low-level outlet that we had. It had a capacity of less than 100 CFS, cubic feet per second, and we keep it open at all times. So here when you drive by the forebay on Highway 126, you will see white water flow from this small outlet passing through the chute under the highway and back to the river. The additional chutes to the left, 7 siphon spillway chutes, those require water to completely fill the forebay before they activate, which means that water also completely fills the canal. So not a good condition to be in when we're worried about seepage and internal erosion. So in advance of decommissioning, we are trying to implement additional measures to keep the canal water levels low. Wherever feasible, we'll try to keep these near-term risk reduction measures well aligned with ultimate decommissioned condition. The first risk reduction measure that we implemented shortly after the decommissioning decision was the removal of the turbine runner from Unit 1 at the Leaburg power plant. Jeremy led this project, which increased our low-level outlet capacity by a factor of 10 to 10,000 CFS. We carefully monitored the low-level outlet during the 24-25 wet weather season, which led to the discovery of some structural problems with the trash rack needed to keep debris out of the system. Following authorization of emergency repairs in November, the repairs were performed in December and are nearly complete now. Our next targets for risk reduction efforts are the 2 biggest creeks, Johnson and Cogswell, locations shown by the blue arrows on this map. Our consultants at Macmillan have worked hard in 25 to determine and design options we can implement most rapidly for these creeks, and we expect to be bringing those proposals to FERC, Dam Safety, and DHAC in the first quarter of 2026. In preparation for detailed design of these risk reduction measures, we are currently doing subsurface explorations along the canal. FERC approved that drilling plan in September of this year, or of 25, and drilling started in November, and we will continue into this new year. Explorations will inform also our planning for the longer term decommissioning work. In this slide, we talk about opportunistic property purchases. Those are also related to our near-term risk reduction. EWEB did acquire 1 more property in 2025. It's a vulnerable property right at the confluence with Cogswell Creek in the canal. This property will also be valuable during upcoming near-term risk reduction construction, as well as the final decommissioning construction work. Note that EWEB already had purchased the adjacent property in 2022. Okay, so moving down to Walterville, a few updates there. We're nearing completion of the forebay liner design and expect to be submitting it to FERC in the quarter 1 of 2026, with the hope to be able to construct in Q3. We also recently submitted updated flood analyses to FERC, and we'll be submitting updated seismic stability analyses later this month. With these studies completed, we're now in a good position to perform a strategic evaluation of the Walterville development to support decision-making on whether EWEB should position for relicensing at Walterville in 2040 or prepare for decommissioning there as well. And here's just a quick depiction of the planned liner improvements for the Walterville forebay. On the left is a photo of the existing condition from a few years ago when we were doing some superficial liner repairs. And on the right is the planned lining of the interior embankment and canal bottom with a waterproof geomembrane. At this point, EWEB has only authorized the design phase of work. We will await confirmation of adequacy from FERC and final construction cost updates from the design builder so that we can confirm the business case before authorizing the construction phase of work. So there, I'm going to pass it along to Jeremy for.
Right. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. Sure. Yeah, the Leaburg decommissioning program is in motion, and some of the work we accomplished last year, led by our consultant team, McMillan. We developed a program management plan, which is an overarching plan that includes organizational structure, roles and responsibilities, file management guidelines, communication protocols, schedule and budget management planning, and some strategic objectives. We also concluded our baseline hydraulic and hydrologic models, which are analyses to better understand the impacts of water that flows into and out of the canal. Some of the dynamics that Mark was discussing earlier with the near-term risk reduction. So super important work. We kicked off our conceptual design phase, which is also going to feed into some of the budget refinement shown in the below bullet. And a lot of this work was accomplished through routine meetings, workshops, and field visits with our consultant team. And some of the key work that we have planned for this coming year, some informal regulatory engagement. Most importantly, we're planning a Q1 meeting with FERC later this winter. We're going to develop and assess alternatives for the future disposition of key elements of the Leaburg development, which also feeds into some of the budget refinement. And with that budget refinement, we plan to learn more over the coming year, and that'll help with refining our -30 to the plus 50% cost range that we initially developed during the Leaburg strategic evaluation. So we had a pretty wide cost range there that we're looking to refine this coming year as we prove some assumptions and learn more with our design development. Next slide, please. The triple bottom line transportation analysis. This is a critical path interdependent process that EWEB worked with the Lane County Public Works team to develop transportation alternatives and river crossing alternatives for the impacts of removing the Leaburg Dam, which does also have a river crossing on that dam. This work was completed about a month ago, and we initially developed 6 alternatives, but we carried forward through a full triple bottom line analysis where we evaluated the economic, the social, and the environmental trade-offs of those 4 alternatives. We plan to share this work and this analysis with the EWEB board in the coming month, and we plan to keep working with Lane County on what the next steps are with that. It's also important to note that we did provide updates and design review documents to ODOT during the analysis, as well as we also met with ODOT in Lane County this past September prior to concluding the study. We talked about some of the highlights in 2025 and 2026, but this schedule provides a high-level look ahead at the 3 primary interdependent components of the decommissioning process. Mark touched greatly on the near-term risk reduction, and we're currently, doing our subsurface drilling to better understand site conditions to help us with our future near-term risk and long-term decommissioning planning. We also plan to accelerate our decommissioning planning in 2026, and we also plan to complete the Walterville strategic analysis that Mark touched on as well. Some key milestones and board direction points are noted therein, with some of the legend items there at the bottom of the schedule, but Lisa's going to touch on those in more detail shortly. Next slide, please. EWEB, with the support of our communications team led by Adam Spencer, participated in 17 public outreach efforts and events throughout 2025. Includes meetings, direct mailers, many press releases, a listening session, and an open air exhibit, which was a series of posters that were installed at Lloyd Knox Park at the pavilion to display some of the decommissioning and transportation interdependencies being evaluated and worked on in the coming years. And the meetings included the Upriver Customer Appreciation Event, a meeting at the Vida Community Center, and that listening session that was primarily intended to be for the transportation analysis. However, we, touched on many decommissioning and just general upriver topics with many of the participants. With that, I'm going to pass it on to Lisa for the next slide and some conclusions.
Thanks, Jeremy, and thanks, Mark. It's a lot of work to try to describe in 12 minutes in at this point. This is our final formal slide. We recognize the board has a vested interest in all the topics that we discussed this evening. We will plan to keep the board apprised of our progress, both at regular board meetings like tonight, and also through other updates in other forums like our quarterly board report. And then in addition, at a minimum, we will also ensure that we seek board input at key decision points. There's some of them are shown on the slide here. You've seen this slide before, but wanted to show it as a reminder. They include things like the proposed plan for decommissioning. So in other words, what does decommissioning actually look like on the ground? And the recommended plan for Walterville at the end of this current license term, which expires in 2040. And then we'll also return to the board if there are changes in our assumptions or any unexpected events that impact the planning process. That's it for our formal presentation. I'd like to open it up for discussion and questions.
Well, thank you very much. And I will ask if there are questions or comments from the board. Sonia, you want to start us? Thank you.
I just had a couple of quick clarifying questions. You mentioned that on the lower level where we have the opportunity, there was the big red star on the second one down below. There was only the one channel that can be opened up. Is there a reason, or maybe you already did this, and this is why I'm partially clarifying, that the other three channels that only get triggered when it's full can just be opened? Could we take that other mechanism out and leave them open to relieve some of that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It is an option that we considered. The easier, faster, low-level outlet development opportunity we had was with that generating unit through the very large existing penstock that feeds unit 1. And so we basically accomplished what's available to us with that particular project at the Forebay. The incredible thing about those siphon spillways is that they have a tremendous capacity compared to a low-level outlet. And so they are like a very important backup. So modifying that portion of the structure, while it would help us for the smaller storms that we might encounter, it would actually hamper us with respect to the discharge capacity for the Forebay.
So it's not simply a door that opens, it's something that actually kind of holds
basically
it out.
stuck.
And so it would be overpowered in smaller storms.
Exactly, a tremendous discharge capacity for a small footprint that we just can't achieve otherwise.
If we knew that there was something coming down the pipeline and it just wasn't there yet, do staff have the ability to kind of override and open it and bring it on so that it releases some of the, hey, let's turn it on now to prevent it from getting full, even if.
Yeah, that's how we will operate. The available outlets is we maximize the flow through them, and it's that 1,000 CFS that Jeremy was able to accomplish with the penstock improvement by removing the runner. That does help us in the vast majority of storms. That was a huge improvement. The problem is that we still have to convey all that water, that 1,000 CFS that's going out the low-level outlet at the Forebay through 3-4 miles of canal. That just the depth of water to convey it through that canal is enough to activate those seepage areas. That's why we really want to go upstream to the real source, those big creeks, get it out quicker.
Right. Okay. Thank you for helping me understand that a little bit more.
Great question.
Can you dig in a little bit more when we're drilling into this? It seems counterintuitive to put another hole in something we're worried about having holes in. We're getting just information about how its structure is forming and what's happening down below. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. In that drilling program plan that we provided to FERC in May of 23, and it took quite a while till September of 25 to actually get approval on that. One of the reasons it takes so long is for FERC and their engineers and their teams and their specialists to review the complexities of actually punching holes into a water retaining structure. So there's a lot of guidelines and there's a lot of guidance that has to be followed to put those plans together, very complex. And so there's a lot of time to review that. So it's definitely something that's looked at very closely. And, I'm on site most of the time during this as this is happening. And we also have our consultant engineers, and we're in very close coordination with Laura Ullman, our chief safety engineer, during any issues or any hiccups or any foreseen issues that happen, and also we're in direct communication with FERC, because those are very, big concerns that we have with creating new fracking or hydraulic, pressures that can possibly create some challenges for us. So that is definitely a good question. And a lot of what we do with the oversight of the actual field work is to try to help mitigate some of those challenges and some of the potential risk of subsurface drilling and, backfilling those holes, or no drill.
So we did that work already because I saw pictures.
It's in progress, actually, and that is a two-phase process. So our drilling plan is a two-phase approach we have approximately 59 holes planned, and we have 29 of them in progress. And we expect to finish phase 1, which is the first 29 holes, by mid-February. And if all goes well, we'll be back out and complete the remaining subsurface explorations this summer and fall.
Okay, and then we'll get another update once all of that is complete, what the findings were and how the structure is holding up and all of that.
That's correct.
Okay, and then I had one other question on that, and then I want to make sure that we're hitting the other. The liner, is that plastic or is it rubber or is it some other material?
It's a composite, but fundamentally the waterproof component of it is a PVC material.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I don't think I gave you what you needed in this, but I appreciate you giving me what I needed to understand what you said. So thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for the update. One of my questions is when we gave direction to move forward with stormwater conveyance as our priority strategy for moving forward with getting into compliance with FERC on this canal. The plan is we put a dam, basically block the thing downstream of Cogswell, reverse the flow, and take it out the wastegate. At that time, there was also talk about returning Cogswell and Johnson Creek directly to the main stem. And when I made the vote to go forward with stormwater conveyance, I wanted that option still to be in the mix as far as looking at it financially, economically, and environmentally. And so I want to know at what point that drops off, because for me, in the long run, if we do stormwater conveyance and run it out through the wastegate, we're still on the hook liability wise with FERC and with the community in perpetual for this canal. If we can get these streams free flowing back to the main stem, that liability goes away. So that, to me, that's part of the equation that goes in there. You say, yes, there's farms down below, there's properties that we would need to do. There's a highway that we would need to look at of how we get these creeks under. But there's many highways that have creeks under them, and 100-year commitment to funding this liability has to be part of that. So what my question is, are we still looking at that? And when will this board have the ability to finally say, no, that is not a viable option, or yes, that is a viable option?
So Jeremy has McMillan working on the alternative analysis for those creeks right now. And we are looking at it from two perspectives: the near term, because of the priority of addressing the risks that we're carrying right now, and then the long term, the decommissioning on a longer time scale. So the Cogswell Creek, Johnson Creek, both of those we're developing alternatives that consider both continued use of the canal versus routing directly with no long-term continued use of the canal. It does look like, in the short term, we've got constraints about what we can accomplish for near-term risk reduction. But the long term, we are very interested in understanding the potential for non-canal conveyance of these larger creeks in particular back to the river. So those remain on the table. We do expect that study to wrap up in 2026, and we'll be able to share results with you.
So my second question on that one is, in 2033, when the dam comes out, the dam's coming out one way or another, is my recollection. At that point, is the canal conveyance subject to the FERC regulations? Because we're not using it as FERC anymore. The million-year flood on Cogswell Creek, some of the things that we're being forced to build it to if we wanted to recommission it. Once the dam goes away, do the FERC regulations go away, and is it just plain regular state regulations that we have to deal with at that point?
Yeah, either of us. So once FERC issues their license orders, we've completed the work. We have a period of monitoring post dam removal. We would presume that the remaining portions of the project would then move to state jurisdiction. That said, the decommissioning planning needs to abide by current, FERC standards. So anything that we're planning around is around those current FERC dam safety standards.
Thank you.
Mindy. Oh, Frank, you want to, then Mindy?
I just want to clarify with Lisa, a number of the options that you mentioned, those would need to be clarified prior to our application to FERC for decommissioning. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So in other words, I think what you're getting at, Mr. Lawson, is that the repatriation of Johnson and Cogswell Creek, we need to make a decision on that in order to prepare our license surrender application. So we will be coming back to the board with our full plan of what we propose decommissioning looks like prior to submitting that application to FERC.
Yeah, that's going to be our drop dead. Once we submit to FERC, that's our plan. But I wanted to, when we voted this last time, I wanted to make sure that we had that opportunity before we submitted that, to look at that opportunity. Thank you.
And then I would just add one more thing. I think it was the board's guidance, and it's also, staff's preference to return to pre-project conditions where feasible. So we certainly are exploring any and all options for that to be incorporated into our decommissioning planning.
Mindy.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So one is about the Walterville strategic evaluation. And you mentioned that it should be done by the end of 2026. And so are you thinking that this board will vote on a direction by then, or the report will just be done by then? What's the plan for that?
So General Manager Lawson and I have not convened on this, so I'll take a stab at it. I think in the memo I said deliberate, and but I would defer to Mr. Lawson around whether you would expect the process to be similar to that of Leaburg. The evaluation will be similar to what we did for Leaburg.
Yeah, Commissioner Schlossberg, I think if you recall when we looked at Leaburg, when we went through the TBL process, the TBL process creates a lot of opportunities to look for areas of mitigation, for making sure we're considering all the proper decision criteria. However, in that process, we realized that a TBL by itself is not necessarily enough. And we had to go through a number of months with the board of deliberating different pieces of it. So while I think a lot of the information will be there by the end of 2026, there will probably be some ongoing discussions into 2027 related to where do we take this at the end of its license period. Some of that hinges too on we're doing some near-term risk mitigation. We know that if the cost comes in where we think, and if FERC approves it, we think through its production through its existing license has great payback, but that can also inform that process as well to give us some insight into what future license requirements might be. So I would expect that we have more information at the end of 2026, but I don't think it would be fair to ask for a decision by the end of 2026, unfortunately. You can weigh in all you want throughout 2026, but I don't think it'll be quite ready for that.
Great. And my other question is about FERC. So I know that FERC works very slowly. And I'm just curious, I know a lot of the federal workforce has been decimated. And so are you finding that things are extra slow with FERC? Is it business as usual? And how do you think that will affect kind of our waiting for them? Because so much of what we do hinges upon their approval or not.
I'll take a shot at this, and Mark, please correct me. So FERC, as an agency that provides, critical public safety services, essentially, particularly through the dam safety program, they did lose somebody due to a planned retirement, but otherwise we did not see any cuts to the staff that we work with directly at FERC. I don't believe we've seen any change in their review times, nor would we expect to.
Thank you.
Tim.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Most of my questions have been asked already. So I just want to use this opportunity to say thank you to you and your team. I think you have all done a really great job to take an extremely complicated issue that our community is facing and boil it down into layman's terms and make it very easy and understood. I just want to share, I had a constituent who wanted to ask questions about what is going on and what is happening. And through past presentations, we're just able to educate themselves before they met with me. And so I fully planned to go into that meeting with your email intel and say, just email Lisa, she's got it. But there's clear, it is a very complicated topic, but there's also clear presentations that are being put forward. So just thank you to you in continuing in with this. It's hard, but it's very necessary.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And the credit really does go to the team, including Adam Spencer, who is sitting in the back of the room, who's done tremendous work on translating complex information for the public.
Couple questions. Yeah, you asked all the good ones. Salmon hatchery, is it gone?
No.
Not the Leaburg one, the one on Green.
The one, Mackenzie Hatchery, that historically had pulled the majority of their water out of the canal and also Coxwell Creek. They
continue to incubate.
They continue to incubate, but they are not rearing, they're not bringing adults in.
Yeah, they don't have the, okay. You're going to give a presentation to the Board of Commissioners in early 26 about transportation. Could I be I personally want to attend that because that's where a lot of our local opposition is surrounded around transportation issues. And obviously it's a public meeting, we can attend to kind of see who's attending, what questions are asked, and how the commissioner is reacting, because it's going to be their decision, not ours.
Absolutely. In fact, we'd like to do a fair bit of planning prior to that. There isn't a date set for the Lane County's commissioner meeting where they will be deliberating on the transportation triple bottom line analysis, but we've got a little bit of time, but we're hoping for engagement from this board on that topic.
Okay. And Frank?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I believe Holly has already reached out. Have you, Holly?
Yeah.
Not yet, never mind. I can stand corrected again to schedule some individual time with commissioners to go through a lot of the details of the transportation plan before that meeting. That meeting not being scheduled, I know you have a really busy load in January. It could be January, it could be early February, that we want to do that with commissioners. I also have a meeting with the county administrator just to give him a heads up. So there's a number of steps before that meeting that we want to make sure commissioners are aware of. And then once it's scheduled, you'll be notified in advance.
And the question about risk mitigation, in the short term, you're really concerned about that because until we can get a long-term solution. Have you done any exploration or inventory about the watershed of Cogswell and Johnson, about the timber? I mean, what's the age and maturity of the timber, and is there any way to compensate timber landowners not to harvest for the next couple, 3 years because once they harvest, they clear cut it. And then the water flows increase by 20 to 30%. And with the turbidity and everything, have you done any of that research to see about what's the status and the age of that timber and whether or not we have an opportunity there to maybe slow down harvesting in that particular watershed to reduce risk?
That's a really interesting idea. We haven't done any proactive communication with the landowners on the upper portions of Johnson and Cogswell Creek, but it's a very interesting idea.
I'm just thinking if, you know, they go up there and timber prices are in the tank now, but they come back and they clear cut it, they clear cut 1,000 acres up there, that's gonna change what your water flow significantly. And I'm just thinking about proactively, I mean, it'll cost us some money, but we just say delay the harvest. We'll pay you the difference between, you know, I'm just thinking out loud about maybe short-term risk reduction.
Yeah.
Good insight. Appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments, John?
Yeah, the last thing I would like to say is thank you to the team here, and for the community that's watching. This has been a long process that has been deliberative and very well thought out. Recently in the local media, there was an op-ed that was put out there, and it kind of made it sound like we weren't doing our due diligence. This presentation and all of the presentations that I've received and that we've received over the years has shown that we have done our due diligence, and we are doing this in a thoughtful, meaningful, and responsible manner. So I just wanted that to be put out there, because there is talk in the community that we are not listening to the community and that we are not doing things in the correct way. And I believe we are. And I think that message needs to be stated publicly, that our team is doing a great job, and that we're doing things as a board and as an agency to respect all players in this. So thank you for your work.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and anything else for the good of the order?
Yeah, I was just going to make one comment. Appreciate your acknowledgement of staff in that, in looking at that, Commissioner Borowski. I would also add to that, commissioners have been very active in their relationships in the public on the, from meeting with individuals to having really at the dam open house type of scenarios. In particular, a number of you commissioners have reached out to the public to ensure that we're gathering input, as well as communicating the results of the decisions. So it's not just staff. I want to also acknowledge commissioners and your role that you've played in this so far.
Okay, thank you. Well,
Thank you.
with that, I'm going to recess for 10 minutes, and we'll be back here at 10 minutes. I'd like to reconvene the January 6, 2026 meeting of the Eugene Water and Electric Board. The next agenda item is General Manager Lawson on the proposed 2026 strategic goals and organizational performance measures. Frank.
President Brown, Commissioners, for the record, Frank Lawson, once again, wanted to really kick this off by acknowledging the fact that these organizational goals have been really debated and worked through, argued over for the last really couple of months by the executive team with some review by managers, and also Kelly Hale, who I see sitting in the back there, who's had to do a little bit of cat herding with relationship to this subject. And so what we're going to present tonight is the result of a process that we've been through and continue to improve and evolve. This is an action item this evening, but wanted to remind you take a moment to really talk about a couple of just process things. This is required by a number of board policies, not just the one mentioned here that the board weighs into setting its expectations for the organization, but also setting the expectation and the criteria to evaluate the general manager and his or her performance, as well as the performance of the organization. So this is really part of a required process. It is a process in the sense that there's a lot of ongoing work that takes place throughout the year, not just the discussion of what the annual goals should be, but what are the inputs to those goals, both from a strategic perspective, as well as we look at our operational performance through quarterly reporting, through various key process indicators, KPIs, and other measurements to provide input for opportunities going into the upcoming year. Similar to the process we went through that culminated in our discussion last August, we've really looked at fulfilling our mission and pursuing our vision as we've stated in policy related to our products and services, and recognizing that there's really 3 business priorities that we have that help us fulfill the mission and pursue the vision. These are very similar, but not identical to what you've seen. You see a lot of consistency here. One is a recognition of our operational performance on an ongoing basis. The piece that we've added there is in the italics, in the sense to recognize that we're doing that in a very volatile operating environment. And you can look at that from a regulatory perspective, you can look at it from an economic perspective, as well as a customer expectation perspective. So that's modified a little bit, but very similar. The optimized energy delivery piece, though it's changed and evolved there, is that we've recognized that we are optimizing the collective supply, delivery, and use of energy. It's not that we're looking just at the resource side or just at the consumption side, but all those components have to work together to be able to fulfill our vision going forward for the key, most optimal, economic, reliable delivery of energy. Again, very similar, just slightly modified as part of our ongoing evolution and discussions, and then very similar, improving resiliency, our ability to operate not just in the volatile operating environment, as mentioned above, but also amidst a number of different types of both near-term and long-term threats to our delivery. In looking at those business priorities, I really like to describe that when you look at pursuing those over time, there are pathways to achieving those business priorities. I won't go through these word for word, but you'll see a number of pieces around the process we're using itself, recognizing that part of running a good organization over time has to do with the continuation, the succession of what you're doing. That's why we're doing this as a system, the EWEB business management system and its evolution and the components there. We also recognize that the customer piece is important, that we have to use data in both the analysis and particularly applied to our improving our business insights on customer needs and their role in our future and our assets. We also look at the fact that the power supply side of this is also critically important, I think we recognize that even this last year when we made a roughly a $3 billion decision associated with the continuation of our access to federal power. And then customer programs and products, the importance that that plays in what EWEB's role in the community is. Some of that, I think, was apparent when we had the discussion in December, and the role that we play in particular in energy efficiency and conservation, and then also limited income programs, and seeing that evolve. We also know on the water side, in particularly, we have a vulnerability from a single source. We think that's an important part of what we're looking at relative to resiliency, and then just resiliency in general. How do we prioritize the multitude of risks? And we think that's important when we look at the fulfilling of our mission over time, and the fact that we have to continue to do this independent of what's going on around us in some cases. Ultimately, this led to, and I am certainly not going to read this, and in fact, I would test you to read this. I know it's larger behind me. The reason I'm not actually going to run through this word for word, or expect you to, is that this was provided ahead of time. You can see that one of the things that we did, and past president, can I call you past President Borofsky, was having trouble turning the matrix to the side. And so you'll notice here the goals are listed, but also the pathways or themes that those goals support are the little red circles. And so you can see that a number of these goals for 2026 relate to different pathways that position the organization 3 to 5 years out. There's a variety of different pieces here. Some of them are a continuation, such as the limited income energy efficiency programs. Some of them look at the importance of one of the ones worth noting, in particular, a scalable data warehouse. That's a pretty fundamental piece of doing things relative to customer programs, in particular, the fact that on the energy side, in the near term, we're really going to lean into customers and how they consume energy, specifically electricity, and the role that that plays in our ability to meet the capacity over time. We're kind of asking customers to really help us help you, and to be able to evaluate and forecast the impact, the pricing. We need to have more holistic data relative not just to a customer, who you are, how much energy you use, but what kind of home do you have or premise, how are you using it? There's more to it than just the monthly bill. And so in order to forecast the impact of aligning consumption with demand, we have to be able to have that ability. So as well as the participation in various programs that we have. Asset management will continue to be a part of delivery. It's an interesting business model that EWEB has in the sense that it is so asset-based. The very first electron, the very first gallon of water takes a tremendous amount of asset investment to be able to do that. It's phenomenal that we have done that over the long period of time that we have, but we continue to have to be stewards of that in a way and in an environment where capital costs and rates and everything continue to be sensitive, even though we have a 100-year history of assets that we need to now manage going forward. You'll see just a couple other things, kind of continuation. One of the things that commissioners had inquired about before, kind of what falls off when we go to the next year. One of the things you'll see is there's nothing about a BPA decision here, other than the fact that we now have a contract and we have an operating environment, potentially new market structures that we need to prepare for that will hit us in 2028. And so understanding the various actions and decisions we have to make in 2026 to prepare for that as part of it. And then recognizing too that things such as peak mitigation is incredibly important in looking at how we size our assets, our ability to procure at peak. That is probably the biggest regional challenge when we talk about supply, will be on the peaking side. And so really looking at where initially we can do some product development with large customers who have probably the biggest impact for I'll say the simplest investment, not the cheapest investment, and then look at aggregated programs past that. It's pretty common methodology for utilities to do that. Almost, you're not really piloting, but you're kind of piloting when you look at what are and how can we work with individual customers. And then one of the things on here, leadership development and the Willamette treatment plant, and the goal there is to work with the board to work on we call it here, the conditions of continuance. There's a number of different actions that we know you're involved with, you're interested in. This is a really key vulnerability. The number one issue from those who are in the water side of our utility has to do with the vulnerability of a single supply. And then one of the things that emerged was the McKenzie Valley Service Territory transfer. And I know that was on your list as well. I did see your own self-evaluation. That's one of the privileges I get. And so understanding what you think is important and what you think has been accomplished feeds into this process as well. The others I won't elaborate on too much. I didn't touch on all of these. Also recognize that when we go to report on the progress of these, there's probably 3 to 5 different actions or deliverables, or I'll call them measurements, milestones, we want to look at it, that support each one of these goals. Those are things that once the board approves these, we'll nail those down more specifically, but those are what you would see in the quarterly reporting, that these 5 actions relate to this, and this goal. So there's another layer here that we'll be reporting on. With that, President Brown, I'd be happy to, oh, and I have one more slide, sorry, false start. This was an action item, really would either like to get your approval of these as recommended, or with any particular modifications or amendments that you think could happen tonight, or if we're off base or there's particular areas. Last year, I think you approved the goals in January. We added one in February. If there was something that was missing, we'd be happy to discuss that. But I'd love some feedback from the board relative to these goals, and appreciate your direction on it. So back to you, President Brown.
Okay. Reminding that this is an action item, so we're looking for direction and an action. And so, but first we've got questions and direction or modifications. So I'll open it up. Anybody in the queue? Mindy.
So you're only here for about 4 or 5, maybe 6 more months. And we'll have
You're really stretching it.
Yeah, 7 or 8. And we'll have a new general manager who might come in with their own vision or a different vision. So how do you see that transition happening?
So I think part of the reason that we have launched into this business management system is to be able to develop some succession of thought, really critical thinking, what's driving the organization. Yes, a new general manager could come in and want to redirect certain things, but the idea here is that these goals make sense, that the organization understands them, the executive team, managers help develop that direction. And so part of the goal of taking this approach to it was to really align the organization, really disperse the thought process. And so this is what it led to. I would like to say it was simple, easy, and not painful, but there was a lot of discussion within the executive team on, does this matter or does that matter? So this is part of the reason we did it. Now, also I'll recognize that there are a number of different business management systems that also a new general manager could come in and do. They have a lot of commonality when you look at strategic implementation, for example, recognizing that there's some sort of vision, you have to develop the steps necessary to achieve that vision. So I think there's some commonality, and that's part of the reason we took this approach and have really for the last year to year and a half.
I really like that you've listed who the key person is who's in charge of it. For me, it kind of helps me think about what bucket it falls into. And I just want to say I like this new format.
Great. My name's not on very many of them either,
No.
just, which I really like.
Sorry. Jim?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm noticing a word that comes up frequently on the 5-year themes, number 2 and number 5. And also on the 2026 annual organizational goals, number 2, the word initially comes up quite a bit. So initially focused on affordability and outage management. And on number 5, the use of energy initially focused on. Can you walk through why initially and why that's not just a 5-year theme that we are focused on, or for the 2026 goals, why that's not a year full goal?
Yeah, I think in particular, when you look at the 5-year themes, it's truly that. It's a 3 to 5 year, you're going somewhere. The initially part is this is where we're starting down that role. The goal of the 5-year theme, or the intent of the 5-year themes, is that there's a little bit of stability to that. And as you go through each sort of annual process, you might be building on that. You might be adjusting. Sometimes we'll use initially because we might get customer feedback that would redirect us a little bit. Usually it's because we recognize that whatever's after the initially word is a building block, that there's something else behind it. So in 2026, if it says initially, that's for 2026, there's probably more follow on in 2027, 2028. So it's to recognize that that's not exactly the end state, but it's a pathway to the end state. So that's.
I appreciate that. Yeah, when I initially read
Hey,
this,
there you go.
Yeah, when I was reading this, I was approaching it from the opposite angle of hearing, I'm going to pull number 2, for example, initially focused on affordability and outage management. The way that I read that or see that is that that's how we're going to start, but we're not going to keep focused on that in the future. Which I think for our customers and for our staff, not being focused on affordability or outage management is kind of a red flag. So I'm not necessarily advocating for wordsmithing on the floor at this moment, but that one is it just catches my attention. It's rubbing your fingernails on a carpet and it catches.
Yeah. The intent was not that, so you initially and drop it. The recognition that it's a building block. It's fundamental. That's where we're starting. I think when you look at outage management, for example, some of these will remain until we're at a point where they become part of our continuous improvement aspects. The other piece of that is that really the strategic elements of the business model is for breakthroughs or things that are significantly evolutionary, not necessarily daily management. So that's the reason you can have an initially, if you reach a certain milestone, you might go, okay, we're going to continue that, but it's incremental. It's not more than that. So that's another reason that we use initially, not to drop it, but to recognize that that's at least initially, that's the breakthrough part of it.
Thank you.
Sonia?
One quick question, and then I'll give other comments. Can you remind me of the timeline in the McKenzie Valley territory and where we're at there? Because this says transfer, which I hope, but I don't know that we have gotten final word yet. So I'm just curious if.
So the plan of Lane Electric is to talk to their board about the contract, the asset sale agreement in January. The original and still the target date for transfer is May 1st.
Okay.
So it may or may not be right under the wire or over the wire that Commissioner Schlossberg
I
talked
couldn't
about.
remember when they were meeting to discuss it and if I had missed something.
They have had more than one meeting, so
Okay.
I think they've had a number of different meetings. Their board operates a little bit differently than ours. I think their next meeting is mid-January, so they'll have some discussions then.
Okay. I mean, on the whole, I support all these items. I do appreciate the format and the handover to the crew that will take this forward. So it's good to know who is doing what and where as we make this next transition of you not guiding this dashboard. So, you know, I appreciate, I know where we were at last year when we had this conversation. It seems like it was yesterday. I can't believe it's already been a year that we were talking about rentals. And I just wanted to note that I very much appreciate where we have landed with limited income. And I appreciate that that is high in our goal set of what we are looking to do. So just to give a little head nod to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, for me, the person sitting in the chair, these goals are our board's goals. And so we're directing whoever is sitting in that chair, this is the direction that we would like the organization to go forward with. And so if they feel that a change is needed, they'll bring that back to us and say, I don't see this. So we're voting on this and this is the direction we're going. I looked for some of the things in here that were going to be important to me as a commissioner and important to some of the people that I feel I want to represent. And I think that I landed okay with them on BP1 and BP2, which is maintain and improve business operations, and BP2 optimize energy. I had the opportunity to go through kind of a think process with a person or a group that may want to bring in a large industrial development. And economic development is something that is important to me in this community. Bringing in high-paying jobs and those types of things are what I believe is something that is needed. And I think that anything that we can do as a utility to help do that is important. One of the things that was a little bit disheartening to me was that after we went through the thought process on this, it came to be that a large load person might take up to 5 years to get the infrastructure and the approval from all of the regulatory bodies to site a facility like that here, from our perspective of getting them the power that they might need. Now, I know a lot of that, you know, we went through the whole worksheet, and a lot of that is outside of our control, but I would want to make sure that whatever is inside of our control, that we can help to streamline any of that regulatory things that are in our control are taken care of. And I think that is embedded in BP1 and BP2. But I just wanted to make sure that we do whatever we can to help our community grow and be a conduit to economic growth in our community, not a hindrance. So I think we've captured it in these, and I'm all in favor of these goals going forward.
Okay.
There's, to a certain extent, Commissioner Borofsky, some of it is captured and some of it is not. So when you think about economic development, we know that we have an obligation to serve. So, but the process and a lot of what you mentioned does depend on the size of the consumption, water or electric. But to really be proactive with economic development, it requires an intentional discussion around opportunity costs, other things that you're going to give up, what risks you're willing to take. I know that we had some debate around how proactive to get and at what cost. Some of those come up throughout the year. I know we're going to talk about SDCs this year, which is basically who pays for some of these, whether, you know, and some of those types of things. So I would point out some of, and we are working on refining, I think we called it the playbook for loads coming in. I know that several staff members, some of which are here this evening, are starting to refine how we make that easier and more clear. And I think that's a piece of it. And it is a bit in business priority 1. But if the board really wanted to be aggressive and proactive around economic development. There's some other intentional decisions that would have to be made. I don't know that we have everything necessary to make that today. So some of it is embedded, but some of it could be discussed more as we sort of progress forward.
Great, thank you for that.
So as we, pause and look at this and reflect on what's happening, I also, we're going to have a major change in leadership and our goals don't talk anything about that. Do we need something in there? I mean, what is the process of onboarding a new GM look like? I think it's different depending on who we have in that place, but I don't know. It just feels like that's a pretty significant portion of what's going to be happening this year.
Well,
It is in goal number one.
yeah, if I may, Sonia, I think
Okay.
John B said it best, that these are ours.
Oh, okay.
And
I
for
see.
anybody to
Sorry.
come in to change them, they're gonna have to convince 5 of us that that's in the best interest, and I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that's not gonna happen. You're not this is a super tanker, it's not a destroyer. We're gonna
Yeah.
be able, you have to turn it slowly. And,
Okay.
and still, and it would change community values, and I don't think that's gonna happen.
Well, also Frank is assigned to number 1,
Mhm.
which doesn't really work if you're not here, sir.
What are you
Sorry.
gonna do? Fire me? So I don't get that
Well,
one
I just
done.
mean for the transition phase. I mean, you
Yeah.
will help with some of that. There may be some, overlap, but then there's, just general onboarding. I don't know. Anyway.
I think there is an opportunity there, Commissioner Carlson. I think there's some degree of flexibility that goes along with that. I also think that one of the things that the organization needs to do sometime in the next year or so is we are almost through the existing strategic plan, and we probably need to take a step back and as a board and key staff and do a little bit of strategic development. Right now we're in strategic fulfillment.
Yeah.
A little more strategic development. That's really a perfect opportunity for the executive team, a new executive, key staff, commissioners to be able to say, okay, we know where we are on the path now, but what's beyond the horizon?
Mhm.
And how does that change our business priorities? How does it change our themes? And is there an opportunity to do that? And I think that's a reasonable thing to assume would happen probably late 2026 or sometime in 2027. It would be appropriate to do that. And so I think that's an opportunity to look for.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, it's an action item. I want to make sure that, we had some comment about some wordsmithing. Tim, are you okay with what's written, or would you want to propose that we make a couple changes before we make a motion?
I think coupled with the comment and explanation, I think that was my primary concern, is that if I'm a customer who's just seeing this, and if I were to watch this meeting and hear what you just said, then I would be comfortable with that. So I'm fine with not adjusting and keeping
Okay,
it as is.
unless I hear objection, I would probably request a motion to adopt the 2026 organizational goals as presented.
I move,
Oh, do I need to, sorry, I was behind.
I move to adopt the 2026 annual organizational goals as presented and discussed.
In a second,
Second.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Next agenda item is future board agendas. Frank.
President Brown, the board agenda report, there was one thing that was mentioned earlier in February. We will likely shift the discussion that we had teed up for February around resource adequacy. In the correspondence memo, we mentioned February or March, be good timing for that. We need to free up some time for this board to potentially talk about the general manager recruitment and the process there. So that's a change worth noting, that would go into February. And really as much time as needed for that. I think we have 30 to 45 minutes just in that meeting, but that could be adjusted.
Okay. Any other comments on the board agendas? I have a question if I may. So opt-out fees, I don't see where they're anywhere in here, and I got a feeling that's going to be a pretty interesting topic to a lot of people. We may get a lot of public testimony and input on that. So how are we planning, or where are we planning to put that in the agenda?
Those are listed, I believe
Did I
those
miss
are
it again?
in our manual meter reading fee on May 5th. It's actually bolded, knowing that you would ask that. That was specifically noted for.
Well, I
President
just
John Brown.
saw the recurring, and so I just skip over recurring because it's a one time.
We added manual meter reading fee in there just for you.
Okay, well, thank you. Once
So May
again,
is the answer, May
It's
5th.
it's in May. Okay, thank you. Any other comments about future board agendas? If not, then we'll go to board wrap up. Mindy,
I believe Holly or maybe Anne sent us just an email just reminding us that we often have a board retreat dinner. And so I just want to make sure that we get that scheduled because I think it's really important. And then lastly, I just want to thank John Borofsky for being such an excellent president over this last year and keeping us on time in all our meetings. And I really appreciate your leadership.
yep. Nothing? Sonia?
Two things. I also wanted to echo that. I really appreciated you leading the board the last year, and we often have some challenging things to deal with, so appreciate you. And then the other thing that I wanted to bring up is, as we go into this transition and we're making this decision in the next couple of weeks, I wonder if there's an opportunity for us to invite staff, or like there's some other mechanism by which we could invite staff to provide their feedback on vision that's maybe more open to us than just through surveys. If there was an opportunity to do that, I don't know if anybody wants to do that, but there's some recent feedback that we received that just made me wonder if staff are allowed to, I don't know, give us their thoughts on where they'd like to see the organization go, or, things like that. So anyway, I wanted to bring that up and see if the board members had any thoughts on that, and if there might be an opportunity to, just offer that to staff, because we have a lot of really wonderful staff here, and I'd love to, have their feedback because it's going to impact them directly. And the awkward and awful nature of this entire process that we've somehow as a society worked this into makes it ever more challenging to make good decisions. And so I just want to reflect on the fact that I really care a lot about the staff that are here and have their thoughts too.
Could I respond to that? We got 600 employees, and we have to think about the logistics. We're meeting Monday and Tuesday, and we're going to have input post interview, and then who qualifies to give input and who doesn't. I think the logistics, it's a great idea, but it's a little, I don't personally see how logistically we could pull that off and be fair to everybody. I'm looking for other people's comments. Mindy?
And maybe, can I just clarify?
Sure.
I'm just, for staff who wanted to provide, thoughts on where they'd like to see the organization go, maybe in advance of it. Maybe not the candidates themselves, because they obviously won't know who the candidates are. But just, thoughts on what they would like to see in a more developed manner.
Mindy, your comment?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just makes me think of maybe a more general thing with staff. We're up here and making all these policy decisions and we don't know most of the staff, and it's fine that we don't interact with them because it's not our role, but it would be nice, maybe this is maybe different from what you're thinking, Sonia, but like even once a year, if we had something where we came and it was kind of like an open time for staff to meet who are the commissioners. I just think that because when the folks came to my house to do the energy thing, one of them was extremely nervous about meeting me because I was a commissioner, and I tried to reassure that person, like, we're just regular people. So anyway, this is something like to think about maybe for the future. And it's not exactly what you're saying, Sonia, because I think you're looking for like feedback in general about the organization, but it would be nice if we maybe thought about in the future of having something where, I don't know, coffee with the commissioners or something like that, where people could just come and meet us.
And Sonia?
I mean, I could also say, like, you know, especially the leadership team that works directly. I mean, that's a much smaller list of people. Anyway, it was just a thought. I just wanted to put it out there. If staff do have thoughts or wanted to share vision or anything that they wanted to share, I mean, can they do that, or are they blocked from doing that generally? Because I think we have a somewhat of a policy in place that they can't. Is that the case? Yeah, I mean, that's really all I'm offering. And I would like staff, I mean, a lot of the staff are in this room because they're part of the leadership team, but anyway.
Should I ask to follow up on your question, Sonia? Because I think there is a policy that says we don't interact with staff directly. We copy Ann and Frank on all communications. And so they would be included in that conversation too, and it would be in the public, and whether or not that's appropriate. Because I know that in the past, there has been some commissioners that have tried to interact with people in the field and it didn't come out very well. They were the union and it was not good. And so I get it's a very delicate topic, but the thing is people can pick up the phone and call you and just say, you know, or contact you anonymously and things such as that. I mean, it's a very slippery slope. And I see Deidre's over there saying, you know, this is a challenge. Is that not true?
Be a challenge, yes.
And Frank, you want to put input?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of different sort of issues at play here. One, I do think there is a board policy around unity of control and communication. Some of that is for particular reasons, and there's a history behind it, and it's something that commissioners have been sensitive about through the years. There also, for a little bit of context, the general manager's evaluation oftentimes is around direction, is around vision, and some of these things. Throughout my time as general manager, I did offer up staff, in particular executive staff, at one point to be able to talk to commissioners. I think in some cases you had some private discussions with them. There was that. The feedback I got from that process is they were very uncomfortable with it. And so I believe it was Commissioner McCrae said, well, let's do an anonymous survey. So recently the general manager, as part of that evaluation, was done with managers, any direct reports, an executive team to provide feedback that was anonymous, and that was used in the evaluation. So there's a couple different mechanisms. It's never been what I would call a protective thing. There's also by policy certain avenues that the commissioners have relative to financial fraud or relative to issues with my performance that can go through the chief people officer. So there's a number of different mechanisms, but there's a little bit of tension there that just would have to be navigated if the board wanted to change that and change it intentionally. And then also there is, you know, there's emails, there's phone calls, there's other ways for staff to do that. I think it's probably not an area where most people would feel comfortable with doing, just because you are scary. Commissioner Schlossberg in particular, it makes me nervous, and I'm 2 people away from her. So I think that. So I understand the issue that there's a little bit of conflict with policy. And maybe there's an avenue through more of the formal evaluation process where that could be expanded a little bit.
Well, I'm sorry to bring a monkey wrench. I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that, you know, we care very much about staff's opinion, and this process is absolutely atrocious for getting that in any formidable way, apparently. So, it's okay. We'll do the best we can with what we got.
Tim, do you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to verbalize, and I appreciate and support what you're saying. And just want to say also that if anyone does reach out to us, it is typically monitored by the executive team, and also that a lot of our staff and our team here are constituents as well. And so that there isn't from my perspective, that there should be an encouragement also to reach out just based on that alone as well. So scary, and I am terrified of Mindy. She scares me every day, but for the most part, we are normal people making tough decisions. So yeah, thank you.
John.
So getting back to board wrap up, I just want to thank the president for running such an efficient meeting today that we're getting out almost 50 minutes early. That's fabulous. The previous president was atrocious at that. And then something else that I'll just mention to my fellow board members. You know, we commit a lot of time and energy to this organization for, as Commissioner Brown points out, a huge salary of $0. But we are entitled to reimbursement for our costs. And I hope that you all are availing yourselves of that. I went through this last week and did my mileage. And the way that I did it was I went through my calendar and I looked at it and I said, okay, I went from my house to this meeting and back to my house. And I figured out on Google Maps that that's 7 miles each way. I put that in for each meeting. Upriver meetings, I did it. When I go to Mackenzie, and I just used my calendar and went through and did an Excel spreadsheet and sent that into Holly. And those are things that we're entitled to. It's not like we're milking the system for huge amounts of money, but we give a lot to this organization, and we should be not afraid to ask for what is our due as far as our travel expense, those types of things. So I just wanted to put that out there, that was the way that I came up with mine. It took me about 15 minutes and it was a couple $100 that I was entitled to. So just put that out there for everybody to learn from.
Thank you. Well, I'll close it and thank you for the election acknowledgement and all that. And I'd just like to say, Mindy, you don't scare me a bit. So but I do want to say I concur with your approach to say we need to get a dinner on the schedule. If you could do a doodle poll, because I think at the dinner obviously will come after we've done through our initial and probably final deliberations on a new general manager. We need to talk about, you know, we got to be careful. We can't deliberate towards a decision or anything, but we can talk and we can have a good dinner and do that. And I think it's fun to do that every once in a while and see what everybody orders and how many desserts you can have and all that good stuff. So I'm looking forward to do that and also to discuss about where we're going in the next year, because, you know, we're going to have new direction and new leadership. And if we let Frank go, but he may just stay on. So any other questions or comments, Frank?
I was just going to start my 50-minute filibuster so that you could
It's going to cost him a dinner. If we go over time, he has to pay.
Sorry, Jim.
I'm done. I owe him 5 lunches from last time. All right, with that, I will adjourn the meeting and say thank you very much.